welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, 18-hour special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. This is the only daily MSME platform in the country, a show where you can voice your concerns and get answers to all your queries directly from our team of experts. We understand the issues that you, the MSME entrepreneur, face, and the show aims to bring you the most relevant and the most updated information on everything related to your businesses. Today on MSME Dialogues, we're bringing you a special conversation with Vineet Nair, the former CEO of HCL Tech. He's passionate about education, particularly primary education in rural India, and is doing some groundbreaking work through his Sampark Foundation. Samriti Grover caught up with him earlier to talk to him about education in India as well as a whole host of other issues. Listen in.
Thank you, Mr. Nair, for joining us on Leaders of Tomorrow. I want to first congratulate you on being featured in the Foreign Policy magazine's Global Thinkers 2016.
Thank you so much.
So let me begin by asking you the inception of Sampark Foundation. It is the baby of your wife and you who planned it together. But what does Sampark Foundation do in India?
Sampark Foundation was formed to solve large social change problems leveraging innovation. The first problem we are focusing on is primary education. We have about 120 million children in government schools, and as per various statistics, 70% of them cannot even recognize numbers beyond 99 in grade 5. So Sampark Foundation decided to enter the primary education and transform through innovation the classroom transaction between the teacher and the child. And today we are in 50,000 schools covering 3 million children, and we have brought in an audio device which is a sound box and a Sampark Didi, a Sutradhar like Vidya Balan and Munna Bhai MBBS. And using that and using three-dimensional toys, we have transformed the way learning happens in government primary schools in Chhattisgarh and Uttarakhand across 50,000 schools, and brought in tremendous improvement in learning outcomes.
So clearly, I mean, there is no doubt that the quality of education, especially in the primary education space, needs to be improved drastically. But how can one do that so that education reaches to the masses and not only to those who can afford to pay for it?
I think we have a very big problem. And I'm not sure people understand the dimension of the problem. If this data around the 120 million children in our primary schools is correct, that 70% in grade 5 cannot count, cannot construct simple sentences, then we have a very large pool of youth which will be neither employable, neither employed. And therefore the social fabric of support is going to be very large, and we have a problem at hand. And therefore, the focus on how do you deliver quality education, not to few, and therefore they go to the IITs and the IIMs and abroad and are counted like Indians, but to the masses, is a critical question. And in my mind, the appreciation of the size and scale of the problem is the first aspect of education in India, that education in India is broken. The second is that the government of India has doubled its expenditure on primary education over the last 5 years. And that has not improved the learning outcomes. That means it is not just spending money, but innovation, which is critical. The third is the role of private sector in bringing that innovation in the classroom transaction, and not to do what the government is doing, but focus on how to improve learning outcomes. I think understanding the problem and bringing innovative solutions beyond the budgets of the government is going to be the critical part of how we solve the primary education problem, which is going to be a fairly big challenge for our society in coming years.
So Sampark has chosen to focus on primary education in the country. What are the specific challenges that you faced when it comes to actually dealing with the primary educations in schools in rural areas?
So I would say the challenges are many, but the only aspect which encourages me is that if you bring excitement in the classroom, using toys, three-dimensional tools, this voice, dance, music. It's like going to a village, and when you get into an immersive experience of seeing a film, everybody forgets about poverty, rain, leakage, sickness, death, and everybody immerses themselves into that situation. So at Sampark, we have found that the number of problems are very large, but if we can create equivalent of that film, Bollywood, immersive experience in a class, get the excitement of the children going up, get the excitement of the teachers going up, the transformation will happen automatically rather than trying to do teacher training and build infrastructure and do all that stuff. Actually, just bring the excitement and then people will try and solve their problems. And that's what we've discovered. Everybody falls, yeah.
So, a lot of companies, big and small, watch our shows, and there are a lot of budding entrepreneurs that write into us. According to you, what are the opportunities that companies have if they want to enter the education space in India? And can you bifurcate between the big players, maybe the opportunities that they have, and the MSMEs that the opportunities they could leverage?
So I would split this into profit and not for profit. So let me just get the non-for-profit out of the space. So if you want to enter not-for-profit, which you should invest in, I think invest behind an idea rather than an emotion. So look for an idea which is transforming a classroom transaction. Don't invest in buildings, don't invest in anything else, just invest in transformative area there. So that's the not-for-profit. Let's come to profit. I think there are a couple of very attractive opportunities for you to happen. Number one is, how do you improve the classroom transaction between the class teacher and the child? There are opportunities in flipped classroom, there are opportunities in video-based content delivery like Khan Academy, there are opportunities on storybooks, there are opportunities on science experiments in a class. So all those kind of opportunities where you take the classroom transaction and suddenly make it more exciting. The second opportunity is, how do you pre-learn and post-learn? That means, how do you learn before you go to a class and how do you learn after the class? Again, flipped classroom, a lot of cloud-based learning opportunities are there. The third area is collaborative learning. One of the things which we completely forget is this generation likes to collaborate, likes to learn. There are no platforms in education where you collaboratively do a homework, collaboratively work on a digital platform to do your homework. So that kind of opportunities are very large. Now, the question is big companies versus small companies. I think big companies have a lot of resources to reach the schools, and therefore they should focus on what I call end-to-end ideas of how we can transform middle school in a very big way, which is very, very important in pre-learning, pre-class, post-class, classroom transaction. MSMEs should focus on point solutions. So what is that one thing you're extremely good at? And take that one thing, take it to 100 schools, then take it to 1,000 schools, and that's the way both of them should approach. You must understand, in India, the parents spend more money on education only next to food, and therefore they would do anything as long as it results into better learning outcomes. So in your proposition, you have to be very clear that it is not a convenience offering, but something which is tremendously going to improve learning outcome. So as long as you crack that innovative idea which improves learning outcome, I think you will be sucked up. There will be more demand being created than you can supply, and marketing and sales will not be a constraint.
So to see more long-lasting changes in the education sector, what are some of the biggest changes that one really has to see?
I think some of the things which we are seeing under the new MHRD minister is the fact that evaluation is coming back. I think it is very important, because if you do not evaluate, you do not know how you can change something. I think there is a tremendous need for curriculum change in applied. I think we need, CBSE is a great form, or some of the state boards are great form for what I call bottom of the pyramid, where you need to teach 100 million. So obviously if you have to teach 100 million, you cannot have an onerous curriculum like an IB. But I think at the top of the pyramid, some of the top schools need to have more applied learning. So therefore we need some policy changes in the curriculum design. I think the third is that, how do we measure outcomes? Unfortunately, there are lots of organizations in India which make it their profit objective to try and declare India as a sunk state. I don't like it, and therefore the government should have a standardization of how do they measure learning outcomes at various stages, and how do they take out a report, like a census report, of how are different communities performing, what are the basis on which the learning outcomes will be measured, and measure that, because our children are very, very important for us for the future. I think the Right to Education Act, and therefore people coming in, is great. I think the partnership with private sector is already happening under this government, which is great. So I think it's the execution emphasis which is needed, and hopefully things will turn around.
You know, whatever you've talked about in this question, I presume that there is a lot that these companies would need to work in tandem with the government if you need to see long-lasting reforms. So what advice would you have for, companies working in the education sector, that how they can work with the government, keeping their focus on quality and accountability intact?
So one thing I can tell you that we work very closely with Dr. Raman Singh in Chhattisgarh and Honorable Chief Minister Harish Rawat in Uttarakhand. And we work with the Chief Secretary, Education Secretary and the entire government officer. I can tell you that in my private sector experience of 25 years, I have not seen more committed people to the cause of education compared to what I see on the ground. So therefore, to say that the government in principle is not interested and therefore you are the only person who's motivated and interesting and you're fighting a battle with the government to try and implement what is good for the children, I don't buy that argument. I think you are intellectually lazy, you don't have an idea, you're unwilling to convince the government of what's good for them, because once the government gets interested in your idea and they put their might behind it, you're going to get a 1000x multiple to your idea. So therefore, answer the following question. What is the core innovation? Why should government back it? Where is the proof point of your innovation works? Who's going to fund it? And what is in it for them? So what is in it for them is learning outcome improvement or votes or promotion or media, whatever it is, right? So once you answer these questions and take that holistic package, let's do it with 100 schools, and then to 1,000 schools, then why? Because we have been allowed to do it in 50,000 schools. We are adding 2 more states, 2 more chief ministers are calling me, and I don't have bandwidth to be able to implement. It's because your idea is lazy. So if your idea is good and you apply your mind in terms of finding why the government should be excited about it, I think they're the best people in making the implementation happen, and you're going to get a size and scale of the kind you can never imagine. If you're a private sector player and opening schools, you can open 10, 20, 30 DPS or whatever it is, 100 schools. Now, 100 schools is not going to move the needle. So if you want to be a business partner with the government and reach 50,000 schools, yeah, of course, they will take you, as long as you can prove that you are bringing some innovation which will radically solve the problem which they are willing to solve.
In fact, the government is really bullish on the Digital India initiative and wants to see a digitally empowered India. So how can companies leverage this initiative when working closely with the government?
I think the Digital India initiative is to try and bring in more and more connectivity. I think it's going to take a much longer time than the government initially envisaged. I think Digital India is a very bold objective, but it's going to be a long cycle. So if you want to participate in Digital India, you have to understand that over a period of next 5 years, the access to internet is only going to increase, predominantly because that's a trajectory. Now you cannot cry foul that it's happening too slow, because it's a very large country of 3.3 million square kilometers. So if your idea and innovation is based on increasing access to internet of your consuming population, then I think you are in the right place. But at the same time, you must remember it's going to happen at a very slow pace. But we have today about 200 million children who have access to internet. However, there is no innovation in learning. There is no innovation in the way adaptive learning. You answer one question, we will give you another. There's such boring innovation. There is no great innovation which leverages the fact that we already have 2 million children who are connected. So instead of worrying about the next 200 billion coming in, can you demonstrate innovative ideas? Can you apply your mind to innovation and come up with an interesting way of learning on the digital platform? That's something which I'm waiting for. What I hear is the same old boring adaptive learning, a little bit of digital analysis here, a little bit there, and then wrapping it in marketing, which is not going to work. You cannot build businesses. Even if you have to build a profitable business, it has to be on a logical, innovative argument. Same is true with education. Just because your assumption people need it is not that they need it. You have to build it on a logical, innovative argument.
Let's take a break. We'll continue the special conversation with Vineet Nayar on the other side. Just stay tuned. with us here on The Leaders of Tomorrow, and we're continuing this conversation with Vineet Nair.
Are there any lessons that our Indian entrepreneurs can learn from the global players in the education space?
So I'm glad you asked the question, and I would say no, predominantly because they are dull and boring. If we really see education systems in America and in Europe, it is largely based on high quality teachers and high quality classroom transactions because of the quality of the teachers. Now that we don't have, and we will not have for quite some time because we don't pay our teachers well. Our best and brightest are not the teachers, and that problem is too large to solve. And therefore, a solution which will work there is connect multiple schools through video conferencing to create collaboration. And now who can afford that in India, and what is the benefit for that? So I would say there is nothing happening out there, unlike e-commerce, what Flipkart is doing from Amazon and Rocket and all this stuff. So I can understand digital commerce, there is a lot for us to copy from developed world. On education, there is nothing. There is all start-up. Now, there are very interesting experiments which are happening in Africa, which is very interesting, in China, which is very interesting, in Vietnam, which is very interesting. So those are places which are trying to solve problems in frugal, innovative way, leveraging digital technologies. Those are the places which you need to learn and try and adapt it to the Indian environment. But at least I'm not seeing anything in the developed countries which I'm excited about.
Basically, it is the developing nations that are pushing the envelope quite a bit.
Right, and it's very exciting. It's very, very exciting.
So is there a sufficient revenue model that would justify companies to enter and invest in the education sector? Because I'm trying to understand, education currently is more so a part of, a CSR initiative for a company. Can it be a full-time, vertical that a company can look into? So
a couple of my friends are private school principals, and they tell me a profit of a school runs into multiple crores, one school. And obviously they try and hide, that wealth in some form because they are not for profit. So that leads me to believe, and I've not heard of any school which loses money, even in remote locations. So the institution of a school is making tons and tons of money. Now the question is, can you transform that idea of education out of school? Because you can't enter the school, right? You can be in the business in the schools. But if you want to make money and build businesses which leverages the classroom transaction by some initiative or some intervention out of school, which is around digital, around books, around various things, then I think there is billions and billions of dollars to be made. What is the problem? The problem is there is no innovation. You tell me a grade 5 child wants to understand calculus. Now, other than the fact you go and see a Khan Academy video to understand calculus, what else do you have to offer to him? Nothing. Where is a collaborative platform where we can collaborate to learn about calculus? Where is a real life experiment videos where you can take me so that I can learn calculus? Where is biological experiment work groups where I can form cohorts and walk into a botanical garden, not from schools but outside school, to learn some themes out there? So I think we are intellectually very lazy. All we do is you answer 5 questions, based on it I'll answer another 5 questions, some YouTube videos are downloaded, and I'm calling it a flipped classroom. So there is a lot of intellectual laziness. So the opportunity is very large. If you apply the same intellect you apply in your business, in creating a new business, I think education companies out of India, non-school education companies, can be in billions of dollars. Same is true with college education. There are so many engineering colleges where do not have professors of teaching them the basics of engineering. That's the reason Indian IT industry actually trains every person who comes in for almost 6 months. So I think there is a tremendous opportunity, but entrepreneurs have to understand and answer the question, what is the innovation I'm bringing to the table? Now, if you don't do that, you will not capture the opportunity. The opportunity is huge, very huge.
So, we get a lot of queries on entrepreneurs who want to start up, maybe in the education sector, maybe in some other sector. But the problem that they face is that they're not able to raise sufficient funds. What advice would you have to someone who wants to enter the education sector, has an idea, but is not being able to raise funds?
Yeah, I would believe that first is funds comes not behind an idea, but behind a success. So therefore, you should spend whatever initial capital you have in trying to pilot that idea and show it a success. Number 2, You should definitely create businesses or initial businesses which are cash positive. You take it to 10 schools, 15 schools, 20 schools, you are cash positive, you can negotiate your first trench well. After you negotiate your first trench is the first big risk you take. Then after the second raise, you take the next big risk. I think it is very important to understand that people are going to invest money behind some semblance of success and not behind an idea. And that is a big mistake which a lot of startup entrepreneurs are doing. That I have a great idea, I wonder why people are not funding it. Actually, the people who put in money are not very smart. So therefore, and they are also lazy, intellectually lazy. And therefore, the only way to show it is, hey, look at these 10 lines which look like a dotted, you can draw the line and now you can project that this 10 can become 100. That they understand. But if you say, imagine the 10 lines and imagine it will become 100, it will never happen. So preserve capital, run your own pilot, get that off board, show them the 10 lines, help them imagine the 100, and you will not have a funding problem.
So that brings me to my last question. If there's one piece of advice that you would like to give to, entrepreneurs that are starting out, what would that be?
I know you're not going to like it if you're listening to this. I truly believe you cannot be intellectually lazy if you want to be an entrepreneur. You cannot drink your own soda. It is very, very important to be optimistic, at the same time intellectually ask yourself some very tough questions. I mentor a lot of people. A lot of young people come into this room where you're sitting. I mentor them for free. And the only question which I have is, I'm going to ask you 10 questions which is going to make you feel terrible about yourself. But after that, you're either going to drop the idea or you're going to get hugely enthused about the idea, because that is what mentorship is all about. So those 10 questions you can ask yourself. And therefore, that will push you to be away from being hugely excited about your idea, to be not intellectually lazy about making that idea work. I believe we have great ideas and I see great ideas. I believe we have great gaps and I see great opportunities. But I see intellectually lazy application of mind, and therefore we never see great corporations. Not never, we see fewer great corporations coming out rather than the capability that exists.
Today we've brought you tips on how you, the MSME entrepreneur, can and possibly should be using technology more and more in your businesses, and about how you can participate in the field of education. Do remember, if you have a company that wants to be featured here on the show, you have any query about any aspect of your business, you can always write in to us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can personally tweet at me at Sunanda_J. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT, or call us on that number you see flashing on your screen. We promise to have all your queries answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.